In this video, we're going to go over Independent Project 4-4 in Excel. And before we get to the start file and step one, I want to talk about the resources that you'll need for this particular project. When you went to the SimNet project page, most likely you clicked on the download wizard. This will automatically toggle you through opening up the start file, the instructions, and if resources are needed, like in this particular project, they should have been downloaded to your computer. On my computer, resources get downloaded to the downloads folder. However, on your computer or device, it may end up somewhere different, so you have to understand where stuff gets downloaded on your particular device. I'm going to head over to my files and folders area, to my downloads folder, and down here I have the folder. It has a zipper up through the center of it. That means that basically this is a zipped folder. And this might be a little hard for you to see, but on my computer, on my PC device, what I need to do is right click, click Extract All. I tell it where I want it to go to, and then I click Extract. Now I've already done this, so the folder is up here. If I double click inside it, and then inside that folder inside there, I can find the text file. We're not going to need it right now, but we're going to need it in step two, so it's going to happen relatively shortly. If you're still a little bit unclear on how to get resources available to you and unzipped, you can head up to the question mark in the upper right hand portion of the screen, click SimNet Help, click Projects, then you should see an area that says Extracting Resource Files. You can also contact the SimNet technical support if you're still having challenges. Let's head back over to the start file and begin. Step one says to enable editing. If you see this open up in protected view, double click Enable Editing, and that'll allow you to work with this particular workbook. If your instructor tells you to save this particular file as something else, now's the time to do so. Otherwise, you can leave it as is. And that completes step one. Step two says to import the Eller Software text file into cell A4. We want to import the data from that particular text file onto this existing sheet. And please understand that Microsoft is changing the way things look a little bit depending on the version that you use, whether it's Office 365 or professional version. So it may look slightly different than on my computer, on my device, but they'll still have this option available to you. What you need to do, make sure you're on A4, then click Data. In the upper left-hand portion of the screen, I need to find a place where I need to get the text file from. On my computer, the first button says Get Data. If I click the down chevron, it says From File, and then From Text CSV File. That's going to work. There are other ways to do it as well, but that's what I'm going to do on my computer, on my device. Then what I need to do is find that text file that I unzipped. And here it is. You may have to look a little bit to find it on your computer or device. Click it and click Import. Now I've seen this look slightly different depending on the computer or device people are using. So if it looks a little bit different, if your screen looks different, make sure it's on Tab Delimiter. And then since I want to put this on this existing worksheet, on this view right here, I need to select down here, it says Load. I need to click the down chevron, and one of the choices is Load To, and that will allow me to load it to this particular sheet. So I need to select Existing Workbook, and that will allow it to show up right here. Then I click OK, give it a few seconds, and it should end up right there. Now please note that once again Microsoft is changing the way their different versions look just a little bit, so hopefully you found what you're looking for there. And that completes step two. Step 3. It says format the values in column H as currency with 0 decimal places. Column H, I can just click column H. A couple different ways you can do this. I am going to right click, format cells. It should default on number. I click on currency and then decrease the decimal place until it says 0 right there. Okay, and that'll work just perfect. And please note, I am going over my instructions step by step. Sometimes I go just a little bit more slowly than you might like, and that's because I'm checking off each item as I complete it. It's really important that you do that so you don't miss critical information. It's so easy to miss a small step, and then it just messes everything up. But anyway, that completes step 3. Step 4, it says click cell G4 to show the auto filler options. So let me click G4. And please note that depending on how you downloaded this, these auto filter buttons may appear here. If they don't already, what you can do is click data and then filter, and that'll make them either disappear, which I just did, and then appear. So I'm going to show these particular auto fill options right here. That completes step 4. Step 5, it says use the auto filter arrow to sort by date with the earliest date first. So I click on the drop down there and it says sort from oldest to newest or newest to oldest. I'm going to click sort oldest to newest because I want the earliest version to show up. Then use the auto filter arrow to sort by product service in ascending order. So product service right here, it says A to Z, that's ascending. I select that and you should be good to go. And that completes step 5. Step 6, filter the date column to show only contract for September. Now pay attention here. This may be something that you don't normally do. I click that down arrow, that filter arrow, and then one of the choice says date filters. If I scroll towards the bottom, it says all dates in the period, and then I select September. That will just give us September's dates. Making sure I didn't miss any little steps. Yep, that's good. So that completes step 6. Step 7. Select cells A1 through H2 and press Ctrl 1 to open the Format Cells dialog box. So I'm going to select A1 all the way through H2. Now there's several different ways that you can get the Format Cells dialog box. On my computer, I have a mouse, so what I normally do is just right click and click Format Cells. But you can certainly follow the instructions, or if you know another way, that's fine as well. But you need to get to the Format Cells dialog box. Should look like this. And then under alignment, it says horizontal. And one of the choices, if you click the down arrow, is center across selection. Click OK, and that'll complete step 7. Step 8. Change the font size for cells A1 through H2 to 20 point. This is nice and easy. Go on the Home tab. Should still be selected. If it wasn't, you can click back on it. Select 20 points, just like you see in the figure in your instructions, and that completes step 8. Step 9. It says copy the contract sheet to the end and name the copy data. So if you're not familiar with how to do this, over the name, over the actual sheet name in the lower left-hand portion of the screen, on my device, I right-click with my mouse. I select Move or Copy. One of the choices should be Move to End, which means it's going to move it to the end over here. And then I need to select, this is important, Create a Copy. Then click OK. And it should say contracts 2 in parentheses. I'm assuming that's what it'll say on your computer. Either way, the new sheet that opens up, we now need to rename it. So what we do is we right click over that new name, that new sheet name. Click rename, click data, and then click anywhere in the sheet to lock that into place. And that completes step 9. Step 10. It says clear the date filter and hide the auto filter arrows. So I'm going to head over to the date filter right here. And one of the options says clear filter from date. So I'm going to do that. So there won't be any filters now on this particular sheet. And I'm making sure that I go over every little step by step, and I'm literally putting check marks or crossing out things that I've completed. And it says hide the auto filter arrows. Now these arrows right here are showing, so if you want to hide them, you can go up to data, click filter. Oh, let me click inside there. I need to click somewhere inside here. Then I click filter, and it'll make those disappear. And that completes step 10. Step 11. It says select cell A5 on the data worksheet. We're on the data worksheet. So A5. And click pivot table. Insert tab, pivot table, to create a blank pivot table on its own sheet. So I'm just going to make sure that this looks good. It says on a new sheet. We don't want to put it on an existing sheet. We want it on a new sheet. I'm going to click OK. And a new sheet should have appeared down here. I need to rename that. On my computer, it's called Sheet 2. So I'm going to right click, rename, call that pivot. Make sure you get the capitalization right, spell it right obviously, and make sure you capitalize what it tells you to capitalize. And I'm just going to click in the worksheet to lock it in place. Before we finish with step 11, there's one thing that we need to do, and we need to make sure we do this before step 20. So let's do it right now. What we need to do is we need to head back to the data sheet. Let's click on that. And what you need to do, make sure you click somewhere in this table, then click on the design tab up there. We need to select convert to range. This is going to set us up for when we do step 20 and we use the subtotal command. We'll have to have this converted. So what I'm going to do is just simply click convert to range. And then it'll say this will permanently remove the query definition from the sheet and a few other things. Do you want to click OK? Yes. I click OK. And now that'll set us up perfectly for when we get to step 20. But anyway, make sure you do that sometime, and I suggest you do it right now. And that completes step 11. Step 12 says show the product, service, and contract fields in the pivot table. So what we need to do is head back over now to the pivot table sheet. Click somewhere in the pivot table. And I apologize if this is just a little bit small for you. You should get this box over here, and then you need to select product/service and the contract fields. That's all you have to do, and that completes step 12. Step 13. It says drag the contract field from the choose fields to add the report area below the sum of contract field. Now watch what happens when I do it on my computer. Maybe I can make this just a little bit bigger. It might be easier to see this way. Over here, it says contract, and if I use my main mouse button, it wants us to drop it in below the sum of contract area. Well, nothing is happening right now, and that's because on my computer, on my device, it's not in the right view. So if it works for you, Dynamite. If it's not working for you, if when you try to drag this, nothing happens, what'll happen is another column will show up. We need to make sure that we're on the pivot table, then right click. It says pivot table options, display. And what we need to do is select classic pivot table layout. I click OK, and it looks just a little bit different, but watch what happens now. If I try to drag that contract field over below this area, below the total area, and release it, you can see how now that appears. It's a new column, and that's what you want. Really quickly, it's probably best if you get out of that classic view. So I'm going to right click, pivot table option, display, and then I'm going to uncheck classic pivot table layout just to set it back up to get us ready to go. But like I said, if for some reason it worked for you and you drug it over the first time, then you didn't have to do that option there. That was just in case it wasn't working for you. Let me just look at my instructions here to make sure I'm doing everything right. Yep, figure 4-99. I'm double checking that I did everything right. Looks good to me. So that completes step 13. Step 14. It says select cell C4. And then click in the field settings. So what we need to do here is we need to choose the Analyze tab, and you should have under Pivot Table Tools up here, should be Analyze and Design. Those two tabs should be available to you. If not, make sure you're clicked inside the pivot table. Then I'm going to click on Analyze. Once again, this might be a little hard for you to see, but up in the left-hand portion of the screen, it says Field Settings. I click it, and I'm literally crossing off each little step as I do it. It says up here, type the word average contract, and it's possible it may change the name on you in a minute here. Pay attention. We may have to go back and change this again, but I'm going to do exactly what they're saying. Then I select average, and you can see on my computer it actually changes the name to average of contract 2. I am going to delete everything but average and then type in contract. So now up top it says average contract. Make sure you spell it right. Make sure you get your capitalization perfect. Next, it says click the number format. Select currency. It says decimal places. I'm going to reduce it down to 0 because that's what it's asking for. Click OK. I'm going to double check, triple check, make sure the custom name is right. Click OK. And I'm double checking that, triple checking that. That looks good. That completes step 14. Step 15 is very similar to 14. So what I'm going to do is select cell B4. I'm going to go just a little bit quickly here. We need to change the custom name. So basically we need to hit field settings again. In the custom name, it says write in total contracts. This probably won't change on us, but we're going to make sure that it's spelled right at the end here. It's not saying to do anything down here. This is a sum, so that should be good to go. I'm going to click number format, currency, 0 decimal places. OK. Make sure the custom name's right. Click OK. Look at my instructions. Make sure I'm hitting everything I need to. And I think I did that. So that completes step 15. Step 16, it says apply brown pivot type, pivot style dark 3 or pivot style dark 3. I need to head over to the design tab. You can see all the pivot table styles. And this is a dark option. So that's the light area up here, the medium, and then the dark. So it limits the choices, which is nice. I'm going to hover over these. I know which one it is because I've done this several times, but hover over till you see the exact thing that you need. Pivot style dark 3, brown, brown, pivot tile start 3. Yes, that's right. And just one quick note, occasionally Microsoft rolls out these new updates and they change little things like the styles and designs. So it's best if you download the instructions right from SimNet. When you download it, the start file, you get the instructions off of there, because if there's a change with Microsoft, SimNet will make changes. But if you have a hard copy of the book that's old, let's say a year or two old, they won't be able to update that, but they will be able to update their instructions right inside the SimNet where you download everything. So it's best to get the instructions from there if possible, because once in a while things do change. It's not anyone's fault. It's just what happens. So that completes step 16. Step 17, it says select the data sheet tab and copy the cells A1, A2. So I click the data sheet tab, select A1, A2. Just double checking. It says it wants me to copy this. So there's a couple different ways to do it. I'm going to right click, copy. And then it says on the pivot table sheet, go up to A1. And then I'm going to right click and I'm going to choose the very first paste option. And it says set align left. So I'm on the home tab up here. There's a couple different ways to do this. For me, it's just easier to go up here under alignment. One of the choices is align left. I click it, and then it looks like that image that you see 4-100. That looks good to me. The last thing we need to do is change the size to 16 point. 16 point looks good. That completes step 17. Step 18 says copy the data sheet to the end and name it subtotals. So I'm going to click the data sheet, then I'm going to right click over it, move or copy, move to end, create a copy, and it creates a copy for me. But now I have to name it, or rename it I should say, subtotals. So I'm going to right click, rename, doing a quick double check to make sure I spelled it correctly. Looks good. So I'm going to click anywhere inside here to lock it in place. And that completes step 18. Step 19. Select cell D5, and sort city in A to Z order. Since I'm on the home tab right here, I'm going to use the sorter up here, sort and fill. If I down click it, it says sort A to Z. I click it. If you know a shortcut or a different way to get to that sort, that's completely fine. But since I was on the home tab, that is what I did. That completes step 19. Step 20. It says use the subtotal command to show a sum for the contract amounts for each city. So here's what we need to do. We need to head over to the data tab right here, and I'm looking at the instructions as I'm looking on the screen. I apologize. This is taking just a few seconds longer. I click data, and since, by the way, we converted this earlier in step 11, this is why the subtotal works right here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to click subtotal, and be very careful what you do here. It wants me to, up here it says client name, I need to click city. And it should be use function sum, that should be right. This should be contract amounts checked. I'm not going to check anything here. I'm not going to mess with this. And if I select city right here, then click OK, your screen should look like this. If for some reason you couldn't select the subtotal, I would suggest going back to step 11 and watching this video, because I show how to set up this particular sheet to make that work. Anyway, that completes step 20. Step 21, click the billable hours sheet. and select A4. I like it when the steps are nice and short. That completes step 21. That was step 21. Step 22. It says click the Format as Table button. So I need to be on the Home tab. In the Styles group, Format as Table, and we need to select, it says orange table style medium 10. So I know it's a medium style, so I can already eliminate a bunch of them. I hover over them till I see it, and I'm going to triple check this is the right one. I don't want to get dinged for doing the wrong one after we've done all this hard work. That looks good. And there's another choice in there. It says or table style medium 10. And once again, that's because Microsoft changes these once in a while. It doesn't give anyone notice. And then SimNet has to go back and then retool or update their instructions occasionally. And they do their best to keep up with things. And then it says remove the data connections. If you click OK, you should get another screen that says your selection overlaps one or more external data ranges. Whatever it says in there, just click yes. And that'll satisfy step 22. And that completes step 22. Step 23. It says type 5% add-on in cell E4. Let's see if I can make this just a little bit bigger for you. E4. I need to type 5, use the percent sign, add on, make sure you do the capitalization correct. Press enter, and a new column is ready to go. That completes step 23. Step 24, it says build a formula in E5 to multiply D5 by 105%. This is where you have to break out your math brain. Well, first of all, if we need to be right here in E5, if I click equal sign, that means I'm about ready to type in a formula. And then there's a couple different ways to do this. It wants us to multiply D5. If I select D5, it'll already select it, or I could have just simply typed in D5, then use the multiplication symbol. And then this is where you have to understand math a little bit. That's 105%, so that's over 100%. So I need to type in 1 and then use the point or the period, decimal point, that's what it's going to represent, 1.05. And then if I look at the instructions to make sure I did that right, click enter, it should fill the formula all the way down. And that looks good to me, so that completes step 24. Step 25, we're almost there, folks. It says select cells A1 through E2, okay, and center them across the selection. So I need to make sure I select the right ones here, A1 through E2. There's a couple different ways to do this. I'm used to doing it this way, so I right click, format cells, alignment, and where it says text alignment, if I click that down button, one of the choices says center across selection. I click OK. That'll center it across the selection. If you know another shortcut to get to that across selection feature, you can do that certainly, but that's how I do it, and I know this will work. So that completes step 25. Step 26. Use the autofilter arrows to sort by the date, oldest to newest. So click this little arrow down here by the date, oldest to newest. And then it says sort by client name in ascending order. Client name, I'm going to choose A to Z. That should work for us. That completes step 26. Step 27 says to save and close. Step 28 says to upload and save your project. And step 29 says to submit your project for grading. Best of luck, everybody.